welcome our Polokwane listeners on One Nation FM. We do hope you're going to stay with us for the rest of the hour, and you have been tuned in since 9 o'clock this morning. We cross over now to Turkey, and we're going to be joined by Salaamedia's reporter on the ground there, and that is Hasina Gori. Assalamu alaikum to you, Hasina Gori. How are you this morning?
Assalamu alaikum. It's quite a nice, better day than we've had in the last few days. It is 4 degrees, meaning we're not completely freezing and able to be out on the ground a bit more. I'm currently in an area called Hatay province in Ato Oyuk. It's a small community which is Kurdish nationals mainly, and they were also affected by this earthquake. We were outside the main city earlier in the day. As you can hear, there's some animals behind me, the cows of the community. They're being herded at the moment as well. This community was also ravaged. Unlike the high-rises, here we've seen houses that are 2 or 3 stories that were completely demolished. As I walked through the community earlier today, they pointed out various houses where 4 or 5 members of an entire family had been killed. So these were some of the things we just saw now. There's some Syrian refugees, and there's 2 families, they told me, that are living here as well. This has been the reality on the ground in many, many communities, that those that are displaced are Turkish nationals, some Kurdish, as well as Syrian refugees who are all left destitute. I don't think until coming on the ground you understand the complete impact of this devastation, because unlike in other disasters where there may be other communities very close by that are unaffected, for most parts all of the infrastructure has been damaged in some way, and things need to be rebuilt from scratch. Many of the communities in smaller tented communities, but for most part people have moved to other areas that are safer, which is in the west of Turkey, like Antalya or Ankara and Istanbul as well. So this is just today's scene in this specific community. Earlier we were in the residential area that was full of high-rises, and the scenes there were heartbreaking. Watching families sit and watch the rubble being sifted through in hopes that one of their family members would either be alive, or even, I think, a small consolation for them would be that they'd have a body to pray and bury at this point. Quite heartbreaking, seeing people crying, breaking down. It's cold. They have been out since Monday, sitting outside, so almost 7-8 days outside, and hoping and waiting for some news. One person that we spoke to, he said that he traveled from another area in Turkey because one of his family members is those that are still trapped under that rubble. What was quite interesting as well to note was that when you drive into this area, you see these high-rises that are just, look perfectly fine, and you think there's no damage until you look closely and you start seeing that each one of these buildings are cracked. There are holes in it. They're very unstable, so people can't even go back into their homes because you don't know that the aftershocks may hit again, and they, could be found trapped under that rubble, or that just because of how unstable these buildings are, that they will, fall down. So these are just some of today's scenes that we've seen this morning. Not even 10 o'clock yet, and this is what the situation on the ground has been like.
I'm going to ask you a personal question, Hasina Gori. In terms of, we know that there's mass-scale devastation in Turkey, and clearly very many hundreds of thousands of people have been misplaced, meaning that space is a scarce commodity. How are you, as a foreign correspondent, and other journalists and relief workers being accommodated, given that there's such a scarcity of space, sleeping space, living space, etc.? And of course, the food situation is.
So I think it's quite interesting because I was reflecting on this morning. Most of us, um, foreign national media or relief workers are finding alternative forms of accommodation, whether it's sleeping in tents in some relief work areas that are designated, or staying in cars, or at the airport. Because even where there are hotels, there are double and high-rise buildings which people are scared of going and staying in. So most
Mm,
people, even just the local Turkian people, are staying on the ground. And this morning while we were driving, because we spent the night driving from Gaziantep to Kahramanmaraş, which is another area that was really, really affected, then moved on to the various other towns, and then stopped in Islahi last night at the bottom of the Has Mountain, which if I can just give you a description of to understand the cold, you can see the snow-capped mountains. As you driving
mm,
alongside, you can understand the chill that is coming. So we actually stopped at a rest stop and slept through the evening and left at about 5 or 6 this morning. Even finding petrol stations that are open and ablution facilities are a scarcity. Food as well, alhamdulillah, for relief organizations in every single town, camps that we've been to, there's just an abundance of basic necessities. So whether it's coffee, tea, food items that can be, warmed up, and non-perishable items. So I feel like there have been, and this is coming mainly from Turkish government, and in conjunction with various other relief organizations. There's so many aid organizations globally and South African as well who are on the ground and have come here. I've seen donations for blankets being handed out. It's indiscriminatory. There's no asking you. Just go in and they're just processing out clothing donations. Get left just outside each camp in the boxes, and people can just go through it and pick what they want. Because given that this devastation happened at 4 in the morning, people were given no notice and they left with very little, and it's unsafe for them to go back into their homes. They need every single basic item at this point. What was quite unique for me in one of the camps, and I've seen it in others, but yesterday when we were in Kahramanmaraş, was that they set up 3 trestle tables and had multiple multi-plugs and abundance of chargers and various cables to allow people a space to charge their phones. Because in this world of connectivity, being able to have power is so important. So that was quite a unique initiative. I saw it in a smaller scale here in Hatay at one of the areas we went to, where people have just set up a table with a few multi-plugs. I know that when the Turkish government was collecting in South Africa with the Emily Foundation, they'd been asking for power banks because many of these areas don't have electricity. But I think, when it comes to me personally this morning, I actually reflected on the fact that I had a chance to prepare and pack my mini travel size of, deodorants, the toiletries, and a bit of snacks, to come with. But for those that were affected by this devastation, there was no warning. So they had no chance to pack a few wipes or, carry a few snacks so that they could, have in case there isn't any, supplies. So I hope that answers, the situation.
Alhamdulillah. It certainly does, and we'll pick up from where we leave off here and now. We'll pick up again tomorrow morning, inshallah. Thank you indeed for the live coverage on the ground. Hasina Gori, our reporter on the ground in Turkey, bringing us live coverage. You keep safe, Hasina, and ongoing salams and duas to the people of Turkey. Till tomorrow morning, salamu alaikum to you.
Assalamu alaikum.
It is exactly 9:30 a.m. Standing by to talk to us is Islamic Relief South Africa. We are going to be talking with Abdul Alim Hamza. He is head of fund development at IRSA, inshallah. So stand by.